All right. So, welcome everyone. We are super excited to have you join us this evening for our 2023 kickoff of CSEdWeek. And this year's our theme is impacts of computing. So, if you are on social media or using social media, please tag us and please also use the hashtag impacts of computing. My name is Vanessa Jones, and I'm a CSTA professional learning manager, but I'm also known as a creative pet toy designer. This is an example of my CS Hero poster, and we invite you to create your own CS Ed Week poster, CS Hero poster also, and we'll actually share those directions with you later on in the session. Before we kick everything off, I want to give a special thanks to our partners and our sponsors, Apple Education and Vex Robotics. So in the chat, if you can go ahead and thank them for being our partners and our sponsors for tonight. So what's on the agenda tonight? We're going to do a quick little welcome, and then I'm going to do just a quick little overview about our theme for our CS Ed Week, Impacts of Computing. I will do a very quick preview of our website, and then I will turn everything over to Dr. Joseph, and you will get to meet our CS Heroes and who are our panelists tonight, and then we will wrap it up and say good night. So what is CS Ed Week? If you are new to teaching computer science, or if this is your first CS Ed Week event that you attended, CS Ed Week is just an annual call to action to really inspire K through 12th grade students to really learn about computer science. It's also about advocating for equity in computer science and in computer science education, and also to really kind of celebrate the contributions of our students, of our teachers, and also to our partners in the field. And for this year's theme, impacts of computing. And when we say impacts of computing, we're really kind of referring to those positive, those negative, and even those neutral effects of various aspects of our lives. And that includes education, privacy, and again, at home or at a professional at work, security, and accessibility. And during this session tonight, you will get to see how our CS Heroes have made a significant impact in computing. And so I'm looking forward to hearing what they've done and sharing their stories with you. And if you have not met our CS Heroes for 2023, here they are. They are 17 incredible individuals who have already made an impact in computing. They range from being 16 years old in high school to being doctors in their field. And each individual CS hero tells a different story about how and what inspired them to study computer science. And you can see that we have a vast amount of different CS heroes because CSTA is very intentional about choosing their CS heroes. We wanted to make sure that we know that representation matters, and we wanted to make sure that we had a variety, good representation of all of our CS heroes. So you'll see that you have a variety of different heroes from different professions, different levels or different stages in their professions, different ages, and different ethnic backgrounds, and most importantly, different identity representation. And so I invite you, and throughout the night, what we'll do is we'll be posting links in the chat, and you'll get to visit our CS Heroes. Not only will you get to experience what's happening with this year's CS Heroes, all of our pages on our website for CS Ed Week is static. And so throughout the year, you get to see previous CS Heroes also too. And so what I'm going to do is just give you a quick little overview of our CS Ed website. And again, we'll be, some of my colleague will be posting different links in the chat throughout. If you attended the preview, you'll saw that And we had a variety of different areas on our website. I also did a deep dive for different sections, but for this particular session tonight, I'm just going to give you a glimpse into our website and then also to share some resources with you at the very end. So on this particular website here, you'll see that we have different areas here. There are several different sections. The one that I'm going to focus on showing you has to do with our CS Heroes. And with our CSHeroes, we have a variety of different activities. There are six different sections, and so sections run from our welcome activities, where you can welcome and introduce the CSHeroes to your students. You can also use poster lessons. That means that, for example, if you're studying about creating apps or creating using AI, what we've done was we have different sections that are focused toward different CS Heroes, and you'll see the different occupations and opportunities that are offered from our CS Heroes. Also, too, there are a variety of different connections. We try to give you different time limits and just a really good curriculum framework. And so we invite you, thank you, Jason, for posting those in the chat. We invite you to explore some of those resources, create your own poster. We'll share those with you in a little bit and just really just kind of have like a really good time. And so again, these are some different examples where you could actually see the different lessons. And so what I'm going to do right now is just take about a minute or so and think about what are your plans for CS Ed Week, and go ahead and post those in the chat. Let us know what are your plans for CS Ed Week. And again, CS Ed Week just started today. We're super excited to have you here to kick off that CS Ed Week with us. But what are your plans this week? We were doing live robotics, definitely the hour of code did. And I'm really proud to announce too that CSCA has a page on the hour of code. It features our CS Heroes that work connects to AI. And so please visit that section. Fifth graders are doing book flyers, cybersecurity and AI, a variety of different robotics and coding, line dancing. So thank you so much for sharing those. And with that said, I am going to turn over everything to Dr. Abigail Joseph. She's going to be our moderator tonight to kick off our panelists, and I will turn everything over to her. Welcome.
Unmute and I'll start over again. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you all for joining us this evening for our panel discussion with some of our CS Ed heroes on the impacts of computing. I am Dr. Abigail Joseph, and I'm coming to you from Northern California Bay Area near San Jose. And I put this picture of me up because our CS heroes that we're going to hear from tonight all fall under the same auspices of this picture that I have up of me teaching in a classroom. Some of them are educators at institutions. Others are students working with other students. Of them are going through and completing their degrees. So they all coalesce in education, but in various different ways. And I'm very excited to talk with them this evening with all of you. And I currently sit on the board of directors for CSTA, as well as work for the Oracle Education Foundation. So this evening, we're going to hear from 3 of our 4 panelists, unless our 4th one comes in. right now, and I'm going to take a moment to introduce you to each one of them before we bring them all up to have our discussion. So our first panelist is Dr. Maya Israel. Her work centers on the inclusion of all learners, including those with disabilities, in K-12 computer science and artificial intelligence. She develops research approaches to applying universal design for learning and high leverage practices to CS and AI education. She also works with multiple school districts to provide teacher professional development on integrating UDL, HLPs, and accessibility practices within their K-12 CS education classrooms. Finally, she focuses on bringing these practices into higher education, teacher preparation at the University of Florida and beyond. Throughout this work, Dr. Israel believes that it's critical to involve people with disabilities in this work to ensure that their voices are authentically represented and can inform all aspects, all projects aimed at supporting learners with disabilities and their teachers. Our next panelist is Danielle Boyer. Danielle is a 22-year-old indigenous robotics inventor from the Ojibwe tribe. She's an advocate for youth who has been teaching kids since she was 10. Driven by her family's own inability to afford science and technology education, she is passionate about making education accessible and representative of her community so that no child is left behind. Danielle creates equitable and innovative learning solutions for Indigenous youths with robotics she designs, manufactures, and gives away for free. In 2019, she created the STEAM Connection, a minority and youth-led charity that has reached 800K plus youth with technical education emphasizing language revitalization. The STEAM Connection focuses on the future, ushering in a new education age via personal and wearable robotics, artificial intelligence systems, and augmented reality. Informed by the past and the present, the STEAM Connection utilizes traditional knowledge to uplift and protect Indigenous communities. Next, we have Meher Basim. Meher has connected communities of women, genderqueer, and non-binary people in computer science, especially artificial intelligence, through STEAM Bloom, which she co-founded in 2020. STEAM Bloom is a global, student-run, tech-focused organization that promotes AI and tech ethics among females and underrepresented sections across the globe by providing them access to world-class resources and hosting a variety of events for free. And our last panelist is Grace.
And Grace is here.
Grace is here?
Yes.
Oh, all right. Thank you. And our last panelist is Grace Magni Bokum. Grace utilizes her passion for computer science to research and develop AI technologies that address global challenges, especially the climate crisis. She developed Folia, a novel agri-tech device that can detect major foliar diseases in farm crops. The device utilizes
I think Dr. Joseph froze. She may have to log back out and then log back in.
I love technology.
Yeah, there you go. Oh. And so what we're going to do is just wait, give her a couple of seconds to just log back in. And if for some reason she can't log back in, then we will just, actually what we can do is we can go ahead and have the panelists just introduce themselves and just tell us a little bit about themselves, something that Dr. Joseph didn't share about them. And we can maybe start with Maya.
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's so good to be here and just to be part of this group of amazing panelists. So thank you. I guess what I would share is I was before going into higher education, I was a special education teacher. And the thing that brought me into this space is my experiences as a sibling of a person with pretty intensive support needs. And so seeing his experiences and what he could do and what people assumed he could and couldn't do really shaped the way that I think about this. So I guess that's something to add.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And Danielle?
Hello, everyone. I can't top what Maya said. It was so inspirational. I'll share with a fun fact. I'm actually having a praying mantis watch me give this panel right now. It's like sitting on the window just staring at me, and I was very overjoyed, and I thought I would share that with you all.
Thank you so much. And Grace?
Hi, everyone. I'll just go ahead and finish my introduction, but I'm also the founder of Folia Technologies, which is an AI for social good nonprofit that develops AI-based agricultural and environmental technologies to aid in the fight against the climate crisis. So that is that. And I guess a fun fact about me is that I love to read, specifically dystopian novels. I love like post-apocalyptic stories. So yeah.
Thank you. And Meher, and apologies if I mispronounced your name. And I want to say that she's here. It's like 5:00 a.m. And so she is a really great CS hero. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, actually, I was going to mention that. First of all, I'm so glad to be here amongst all of the wonderful panelists and everyone. So that was actually going to be my fun fact. I'm actually in India right now, and it's 5:48. But for some reason, I'm super like hyped. Like I'm not even like I haven't drunk coffee or anything like that or any form of caffeine, and I'm just like super excited to be here. So yeah.
All right. And Danielle?
Yeah, I threw in my fun fact, and I don't know exactly what to add, except I'm also being watched by dogs. So I have a really great audience today, outside of all of you, and I'm very hyped to be here and very excited.
Right, wonderful. And I don't see Dr. Joseph back in, so I will just continue it. I will be the moderator, and if someone tells me if she gets back in, we'll let her take over. And so we can just go in that same order that I just called you on. Let's have our panelists answer this question. What makes you a CS hero? And let's start with Maya, and then Grace, and then Mahar, and then Danielle.
Oh, Lord, this is like the hardest question, right? I don't know how the rest of you are going to answer this question, but I don't know that I necessarily feel like I deserve that accolade. But I think the reason I was nominated is because of the work that I do around an inclusion of specifically learners with disabilities in this space.
Thank you. And Grace, you want to answer that same question?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Maya. I can't really say for certain why I won, but I guess I could say that my work with social impact computing has had a decent amount of success. I've been able to raise up to $70,000 in research funding for my artificial intelligence research. I've also, with my Folia Technologies nonprofit, have been able to raise over 15,000 and have been highlighted by notable organizations such as Microsoft, Lockheed Martin, and the People's Climate Innovation Center. And lastly, my nonprofit is backed by the United Nations Framework for Climate Change, also known as UNFCCC. So I guess that might be why I would be considered a CS hero, but I do honestly think that what makes me most proud of being a CS hero is having the opportunity to inspire others and to inspire people I'm 18 years old, so were in my position not too long ago. And I just love being able to inspire people to use computing for social impact and humanitarian causes. So yeah, that's what makes me a CS hero.
Thank you. And Maher?
Yeah, just like going off of what everyone said, I don't know how or why I won, but I think I'm definitely a CS hero in the making. And I think one of the main projects that I've worked on that I think has led to that has been co-founding Steam Bloom my freshman year in high school, and right now I'm a freshman in college. So it's been a really long journey, and I started with my sister. And the main aim of Steam Bloom was to provide AI and tech ethics resources to women in underrepresented sections across the globe by providing them with access to world-class resources and hosting a variety of events for free. But I think more than that, it just kind of stems from the fact that I want to get all the voices heard and everybody to the table. And I think it's this need that has brought me to this point. And I hope to continue to do that through Steam Bloom and through other projects that I do in the future.
Great. Thank you. And same question, Danielle.
Yeah, everyone answers is so beautiful. For me, I think anyone can be a CS hero. And like looking through everyone's posters, if y'all have not had an opportunity to do that yet, you have to. It's so amazing and just so inspirational. It gives me so much joy. Being a CS hero to me means solving problems to benefit my community. And I do that through robots. So a lot of the issues that I experience in my community is not having access to technical educational resources, not having access to role models in tech, not having access to like language revitalization resources for our community. There's a lot of different problems in many different sectors, and I think robots can be a great way to help solve that. And I've been inventing robots for 5 years now, almost 5 years. And what I do is I design, manufacture, and distribute robots for free to Indigenous students to help get them into STEM careers and interested in solving problems and inventing to create solutions. And I think that, and this is how I present it to my students, and I want to share this with you all. I present it as like our superpowers, right? We all have in my mind, like STEM or STEAM superpowers. And it's the way that we're able to see kind of the challenges around us and how we want to solve them. And so for me, it's robots. And for a lot of other people, it can look like many different things, from photography to graphic design to coding, right? And all of us have these unique skills that we can tap into and we can use to help uplift where we came from. And yeah, to me, that's what makes a CS hero, is someone who's solving big problems and doing it in really cool ways. So yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you for answering those questions. I have another question, which is my favorite question. How does your work impact computing? And we'll start with Maya and then go around again.
Yeah, awesome. So I guess I could say how I hope my work impacts computing. There are a couple of ways that I think so. We're really lucky to have partnered with Google to scale some of the work that we've been doing in like small groups. So, you know, I was as a teacher, so I work a lot with teachers doing professional development on, you know, what are the best approaches to make sure that we're including everyone, and making sure that the teachers have the pedagogical skills and the beliefs, right? Making sure that they believe everybody belongs. And so what I hope happens, or I guess maybe a few things. The first is that more school districts and school take an active role in ensuring that all kids have access to computer science, because we're not seeing that systemically at this point. So I'm hoping that we can scale this and like really kind of bring the work that we're doing to more school districts to make sure that, you know, really all kids can have a meaningful experience, regardless of, you know, whatever buckets or categories people put them in. And then the other part, and this is why it's cool, I'm listening to what Danielle is saying now and everybody else on the panel, is that we're working a lot with tech companies and sharing with them what some of the accessibility challenges are. So we saw, you know, Apple and Vex are both sponsors, which is amazing, and like reaching the big tech companies, but also the smaller tech companies, so that as they design their tools, that they're being proactive and thinking about accessibility. So I hope that we get a wider range of tech companies that actually work with us to make sure that tools are born accessible, right? Rather than retroactively trying to do things to make them accessible for all learners.
Thank you for sharing that. Grace?
Yeah, I would say that for me, I think the intersectional usage of artificial intelligence in like other fields of science and climate science is very effective, but I feel like it's kind of underutilized as of late. With my research and development, I hope at least to be able to encourage middle and high school students to pursue fields in AI, especially since I feel like AI is such a rapidly growing field. And despite it being pretty often misused inappropriately and improperly, I feel like with the right amount of people and the right types of people going for the right things, especially using AI for more humanitarian reasons and making ethical considerations, I feel like AI could be something that would be ingrained in computing itself and be able to make positive impacts on multiple different sectors of our lives. Climate science is one example, but there's many others like gender inequality and global poverty.
Oh, thank you. Nahara?
So I guess I'll take this question to kind of answer how my co-founder and I, along with 20 incredible chapter directors that STEAM Bloom has, have been able to create an impact through STEAM Bloom. Just to throw some numbers out there, till date, STEAM Bloom has reached about 2,500 students spanning 25 plus countries. And I guess the main three things that STEAM Bloom works on, first is to educate and inspire students, especially from the underrepresented communities. The second is to advance AI ethics about fairness, accountability, responsibility of the AI field. And finally, to create awareness about the need of alignment of AI with human values. So I guess we have several methods that we are able to do to accomplish this goal, including podcasts, conferences, online courses, and yeah.
Oh, thank you. Danielle?
Yeah, so I'll start out with what I'm doing at my organization. So when I was 18, I founded a charity called the STEAM Connection. And I think a lot of us know what STEAM stands for, but I'll refresh: science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And I think STEAM is what STEM should be, which is integrating arts and especially culture back into STEM. For me, this is what I tell my students. We have always been scientists. We've always been inventors, especially as Indigenous peoples, as minorities. We've always been creating things. We deserve to feel like we are at home and we have a place within science and tech, right? And that can not always be the case, especially for me. The reason why I started my organization is because I was really interested in science and tech. I got my start because of my little sister. She loved STEM, but we couldn't afford any of the local programs. It just wasn't doable for us. It was hundreds of dollars. And we grew up under the poverty line. Period, not doable, can't do that. I got to high school and I had the opportunity to join a robotics team, and I got bullied the entire way. I was one of the only girls. It was a really rough fit. down to even getting stalked with drones, like bullied online, all that stuff. Like that's crazy, you know, like especially for someone who just wants to learn about robots. I founded my organization because there's not a lot of safe spaces to learn about STEM, especially for Indigenous girls, especially like middle school, high school age. And so what we do is we create robots and we give them for free to schools, and we train teachers how to use them to get STEM learning into students' hands right away, without a lot of startup. A lot of the schools we work with, a lot of the communities we work with don't even have stuff like internet access. So there's a lot of kind of issues to overcome that a lot of people don't even think about, especially if you don't work with Indigenous communities. And so to me, I wanted to make sure that the resources I was creating are something that could be accessed by everyone, not only from my community. I'm Ojibwe from the Sioux tribe, which is in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, but all Indigenous communities around the world. And there's many, many of them. For me, I started out with a robot called Every Kid Gets a Robot. It's a robot that costs less than $20 to make and goes to kids for free. We've sent out over 11,000 free robots as of now, which is so cool. I also created a language revitalization robot that sits on your shoulder. It uses ethical AI, senses motion, and speaks to students in Indigenous languages, which is so exciting. And they're all 3D printed out of recycled plastic, which is so cool. So that is what I'm doing in regards to computing. I designed these robots. I coded these robots. I designed the electrical systems for these robots. I designed the CAD files, all that good, happy stuff. And now what I do is I help teachers get STEM programs into their classrooms. And yeah, it's super exciting. And I get to make robots every day, which is like, it's the coolest thing in the world. But yeah, my biggest focus is overcoming those accessibility gaps, especially where we are often forgotten. When we are left out of STEM, I think that is such a huge disadvantage, not only to our communities and our ability to advocate for ourselves and within tech, but also like tech as a whole and being able to create cool things. So yeah. If anyone's curious in learning more, I see some comments. My website is www.steamconnection.org. I'll pop it in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Didn't I tell you they had such incredible stories? Dr. Joseph is back. And so as we transition to our next set of questions, we're going to gear toward asking them each specific questions. And I want you to use the chat to post your questions, and we will, you get to ask the heroes your questions, your personal questions. Okay, and I'm going to turn everything over to Dr. Joseph.
Hello, everyone. I am back on hotspot. Hopefully it'll last. And so I missed the first part of everything wonderful that you shared, but I will echo what Danielle said about make sure everyone you go out and you visit the CS Heroes site. There's plenty of resources about each of our panelists and all the other CS Heroes. And Danielle, I want to circle back to you and about the programs that you're creating. Can you tell us a bit more about how our attendees can learn more about Indigenous people in STEM and what can they do to help further your cause?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. And I'm so glad you're back. The internet issues, oh my God, I feel that. It's so rough out here. Yeah, so a lot of people are often curious about Indigenous peoples and what that means in regards to STEM, as well as Native American Heritage Month just happened. A lot of teachers have reached out and they're like, how can I talk to my students about Indigenous peoples in general? And if you want a really great resource to share stories about Native peoples who are like doing really awesome things in STEM, I have like 3 good resources for you. The first one is the American Indian Science and Engineering Society. You can read about amazing role models who are like inventors, PhDs, like a bunch of genius people doing amazing things from tribes all around, especially like North America. And I recommend looking into that and learning more because our peoples are doing really awesome and exciting things. Another resource, oh my goodness, I'm like forgetting the one thing that, oh yeah, okay. The MIT Solve Indigenous Communities Fellowship. They have amazing articles and resources on Indigenous peoples who are solving problems with technology. I was a solver like recently, and my student just became one, and we're headed to New York tomorrow to celebrate, so I'm excited. And one of my friends is like a hydroponics designer for Navajo Nation. Another person does stuff with drones. Like, please read about this. It's so interesting and so fascinating, especially if you don't know much about our communities or the problems that we face. Another good resource is People of Color in Tech. They cover all people of color, but also Indigenous communities, and recently put out a really good article on Native peoples in tech doing cool stuff. So check that out as well. But yeah, all those things are really fun to read and make me very excited because, as I said, there's a lot of problems in our communities, and there's a lot of the time we're solving these problems, but there's not a lot of representation to our voices and how we're solving it or what we're already doing in regards to these challenges. So please check it out. Yay.
Oh, thank you for sharing that wealth of resources. And I will also point you all to the CS Heroes website. There is an amazing video on Danielle's program and everything that she's done. It's like a really beautiful 20-minute video. I
Oh
encourage you all
yeah,
to go
check that
watch
out.
that and more.
It came out
Yeah.
recently. It's so exciting, and it was made by MIT on my robots and stuff. It's called Indigenous Robotics. Please check that out if you're interested. I look crazy in it, but don't mind that. So.
Ah, you look great. You look great. Meher, so you currently are, well, you're visiting us from India, but you are at Dartmouth. What are your future career paths? You've done all this impacts in computing currently, and I'm sure you'll take that forward, but what are you thinking about doing in the future?
Thank you so much for your question. And again, I'm so happy to have you back after the internet. But I kind of just want to talk about, well, it's very likely that maybe this will change since it's just my freshman year. But I guess this is kind of what I've aspired to do as long as like I've started doing STEM and got involved with it. And that is to start a health tech nonprofit dedicated to developing cutting edge technology to treat neurodegenerative diseases at a low cost. And I guess this kind of stems from my own personal experience. So my grandma actually had Alzheimer's, and having witnessed that and also having been a part of several old age homes and volunteering, I've met with several individuals who have neurodegenerative diseases. And I think a big portion of my research in AI also centers on Alzheimer's. One of the first projects that I ever did was on early detection of Alzheimer's, and I kind of had to take a break because I wanted to expand STEAM Bloom, so I want to get back into that research as well. But overall, I feel like that will allow me to not only leverage my AI skills, but also, I guess, give back to the society in some way and learn from my experiences through STEAM Bloom. So I think that's one of my main like career or plans or goals that I would like to achieve in the future.
Thank you for sharing that. And we look forward to wherever your path takes you, because we know that the impact is going to be even more than what you are doing right now.
Thank you.
Maya, can you share with us a bit more about your research approaches and how they help students feel included and belong in the classroom?
Okay, small, little question.
It's a small question.
So I'm going to answer this, but I'm going to answer it, but kind of from the CS and the AI perspectives. So kind of the CS Ed AI education, we are sort of like in CS Ed, we have the standards, we know what we need to teach. In AI education, we have the big ideas, we have the learning progressions. Kind of the how is where I really look at the research. And so we know from other content areas about some really, really effective pedagogical approaches: universal design for learning, high leverage practices, translanguaging, culturally responsive and sustaining approaches. And so the research that I do is looking at how can we use these strategies that we know about from other content areas in the context of computer science and AI education. At the same time, like how I use the research, I think about this, I'm hearing there's just so much advocacy on this panel. So part of the advocacy for me is to collect the data about who has access and who doesn't have access. So even like showing like where the gaps are in terms of participation, I think is part of what I'm doing. So I think about this as a research base of like, what is it that we need to know in order to, like, if we don't know where the problems are, we can't even start to address it. From the AI side of things, and I guess I told you all at the beginning, so I don't know if I did, I was a special ed teacher, and I came to CS and tech based on like the impact that I saw on my students. So I am not an AI expert, but what I'm learning and what's really fun for me is that I can learn these new skills. Like, how do I use machine learning to look at data and to create models for detecting things like when a kid is frustrated? Or how do I think about collecting data that's really broad, that includes a representation that's much broader than what we typically collect, and use that data to create some predictive models that can then tell teachers how to intervene. And so there's a lot of issues in terms of ethics and bias and consent and surveillance that we can talk about when it comes to that. But I think that understanding those methodologies, but also really thinking about like the ethics behind that is part of the research that I'm like barely scratching the surface on, that I'm just loving. So I've never thought of myself as somebody who would do natural language processing, but how cool, right? So
Yeah,
that's kind of what I think about it.
yeah, you can learn anything at
We
any
can
age.
learn new things. We can do hard things. Yes, those are my mantras.
And apply it to your current working context, right? And that brings us, that's a great segue into what Grace does, because Grace does a lot with AI in her work and her studies. And Grace, I'm going to take you into kind of our next question that the other panelists can kind of think about. And that question is, we're talking about the impacts of computing. And Maya touched on this a little bit about how there's an ethical side, right? So there's this good side, which is all the amazing work that you all are doing for your communities. There's a neutral aspect to it, right? And there can be negative impacts to this work that you're doing. So Grace, can you talk to us a little bit about the good, the neutral, and the negative of the work that you do and how it affects the communities you work with?
Yeah, so for starters, I'd like to say that the work that I specifically do, my first product with Folia Technologies was also called Folia, which is a cost-efficient device that is able to automatically detect 3 major foliar diseases in corn plants. And the devices use deep learning technology to be able to act as an early warning system for farmers and to remove diseased crops before they infect others, thus reducing crop wastage. So I would say my device uses AI, and I would say the positive in this case is obviously that this device is able to run autonomously, so it's able to run at all hours, allowing farmers to conserve their energy for more important tasks that can't be done by an AI. Obviously, the neutral impact is that it would increase economic welfare for farmers as well, who are very often struggling economically, especially being only 3% of our population in the US. And the downside, obviously, the caveat is that AI technologies, when used improperly, can also deal a lot of social harm and online harm. But specifically, what I would say to that is that I think that's specifically why it's very important to get more people into AI. I feel like AI policy is something that is very recently gathering steam in the US, and I think it needs to be more delved into and much more addressed. And I think having more people, especially ethical people in AI, would solve this issue specifically by having more ethical development in data set construction, and crediting all peoples involved in like any AI development. And so that is the negative effect, but I do think that that is specifically why we need more students and teachers to come together to teach students how to pursue AI, but also how to do it ethically, which is why I would actually like to shout out a learning resource if you would let me. It is from AI for All, AI and the Environment. You could probably find it on my CS Hero website, but I think it's very helpful for students who want to learn how to use AI for humanitarian issues like the environment. So shout out to that. But yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Grace, and thank you for the additional resources. You can never have too many resources in your tool belt to include all the different varieties of learners that are in your classroom.
Dr. Joseph, did you freeze again?
I froze. Yes, my
Okay.
hotspot is big. Meher, the same question to you, the good, the neutral, the bad impacts of the work that you're doing and the work that you see happening in computing.
I think for the good, I kind of just want to again touch bases on STEAM Bloom again and kind of like talk about in general. I think that all the panelists have done work which related to AI or CS, and which has, I guess, helped foster a world with like less bias and more fairness. And specifically through the work that we're doing through STEAM Bloom, I think the main good parts that we are trying to propagate or encourage is diversity in this field, since it really requires it. And I think we've been able to do that in some way. And then I guess for the neutral, again, kind of just talking about STEAM Bloom again, I think starting in a STEM field, it can be a very intimidating experience for young women. And there was actually a recent survey from the US Census Bureau that stated that only 27% of STEM employees are women in 2019. So I guess that kind of shows, not even neutral, but I guess it just shows that we have a really long way to go to, I guess, achieve perfect equity in this field, which I don't even think we ever will, but I think it's something that we should strive for. And then I think for the negative, I, again, just kind of going over my neutral point, which is that I still feel that despite the efforts that many have put in to address the lack of gender diversity, there are still stereotypes about women in STEM. And hopefully through the work that all of us are doing and all the other incredible work that is being done by CSHeroes around the world, we can try to bridge this gap, since diversity is one of the most important things in STEM, in AI, and especially in AI, and especially right now. So, yeah.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Danielle, same question, but I want you to focus on your language, the importance of language, because that is a big part of the robots that you create and that you bring to your communities. And so thinking about the good, neutral, and negative impacts of your work, why is language important? Why was building these language robots important to you?
Yeah, building a language revitalization robot mattered a lot to me because my language, it's called Ojibwe-Moan or Anishinaabe-Moan. It's considered an endangered language, and that's the case for many indigenous languages. And so for us, when we lose our language and we don't have many speakers left, we also lose a huge part of ourselves and our culture, because we lose the ability to communicate about our ways, our culture, our identity, ourselves. Like we lose so much when we lose our language. And especially through COVID and stuff, we lost a lot of our language speakers, and a lot of the resources that are available to learn Indigenous languages. Well, one, there's not a lot of resources, and two, a lot of the resources, like for my language, are in a different dialect or in academic dialects rather than the dialects that we actually speak. And so it can feel like a huge kind of insurmountable problem when you see that the number of speakers are dwindling and that there are so many problems just to overcome in that regard. Especially because it's like, okay, we need to teach the people who are already like adults and stuff, our languages, but we also need to teach our children our languages. And it can be a scary problem, especially because there's hundreds of Indigenous languages. It's more than just my own. And everyone is kind of on it, each of our communities, we're like, we have to do this, we've got to get on it, but it's such a big problem. And so for us, something that we wanted to create at my organization was the SCO bot. SCO is reservation slang for let's go. And basically what it does is it senses motion and starts speaking Indigenous languages, basically at a very rudimentary level, simple kind of to get kids involved in how to introduce themselves in their language, basically how they can learn more about their language, stuff like that. So that is the kind of the pros, is creating a place where we can learn our languages, and we can do it in a way that involves data sovereignty. So if you guys are interested in AI, data sovereignty is a big word to learn too if you do not know much about it. Basically, it's the ability to advocate for ourselves and our own knowledge and our own data within like especially AI, tech, stuff like that. In Indigenous communities, not only are our language resources commonly stolen by non-native organizations, but so is our information and our knowledge that we've collected, researched in general, right? So it's the ability to be able to make decisions for ourselves, by ourselves, right? And unfortunately, there's a lot that comes in the way of that, especially within AI, especially as big companies get involved, get interested, right? I've had like a large company say, oh, we want to put, I'm not going to say the name of it because I might get in trouble, but they wanted to put intelligent speakers into my robots to collect data on Indigenous youth. I was like, whoa, absolutely not, But those are the types of things that we have to think about when we are within the world of technology. There's a lot of pros, there's a lots of cons, and there's lots of middle ground. And to me, I want to share a piece of advice on how I navigate these spaces. I have a youth advisory board. And basically what we do is we together decide who we accept money from, who we're willing to get sponsored by, who we're willing to work with, where our information should be shared and how it should be utilized, how it should be protected. And so that is like a big conversation, but I just wanted to pop it in there because I think it's so important for all of us to think about, especially as like AI is becoming more and more of a thing, right? And then also within AI in general, and within language revitalization, there's a lot of problems that we can face, especially with like speech recognition and stuff like that. That's not always an accessible thing for people with different dialects, with different accents, stuff like that, as we're pulling from different data pools of like speech and things, right? And so there is a lot of error within speech and AI, and there's a lot of progress that has to be done, because until that is completely like to the point that we need it to be, I don't think that it's as useful as it could be. So yeah, that I touched on so many things, don't mind me. If any of you are curious about any of these topics, feel free to reach out on DM on Insta, because I love to talk people's ears off, You can find me at my name, Danielle Boyer, on Insta, and I'm so happy to talk about this stuff. So do reach out.
Oh, awesome, Danielle. Thank you for sharing that and your enthusiasm for your work, everyone's enthusiasm for the work that they bring today. And before we get to our last question, we're nearing the end of the hour. How did that go by so quickly? I don't know. Maya, Danielle touched a lot about youth and youth voice and youth advocacy. How do you bring your work with teachers to help youth navigate these ethical issues that they might be facing in computing?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. I think that it starts by, actually, this is a great panel to think about this. It starts with creating projects and products that that students are really passionate about, right? So, I mean, that's where it starts, is like, how can whatever issue that you've identified, like, how can you think about using computing, using AI to address those? And then we start to have these conversations about who's in the room when you're doing that development, who's not in the room when you're doing that development, what data is feeding your decisions, how could we add transparency to that data, how do we ensure that there is privacy? So I think the conversations, if it starts with a place where the children, I mean, when they're younger, like, are really passionate, right? Like, and then we can have those conversations about ethics from that perspective. I think the other thing is that really pushing students to look like 3 or 4 steps down the line. Like, let's say we do this development, who's going to be using that technology? What good, like, kind of like the conversations we had, what are the good impacts? What are the neutral impacts? What are the negative impacts? I think those rich conversations is where that that can come through, and to do it in a place that's really like a safe environment, so that, you know, we're all gonna, like, we're all learning in this space. And so it's okay to not know the answers, or not know all the answers, and to challenge each other's answers.
Thank you all for such a wonderfully rich conversation. There is one question that I'm going to throw up there for you to ponder, but I believe that Danielle offered to talk with people. And the question comes from Karen. Are any of you panelists available to Zoom with my students this week or next week, Eastern Standard Time, from 9 to 9:45, 10:15 to 11:15, or 1:45 to 2:45. Ours is a rural school with culturally diverse and economically disadvantaged students in Ellerbe, North Carolina. So we will make sure, Karen, to get this to the panelists, and hopefully we can connect you all, and someone will be able to share some of their thoughts and their work with her students in her classroom. But to wrap up, one last thought before I hand it over to Vanessa, and that is, what would your younger self tell you about your CS journey today? Or what advice would you give your younger self regarding the work that you do now? Grace, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I would say when I was first starting out in computer science, you know, as a Black woman, I felt like there was a high possibility that I would feel overlooked entering the tech industry, especially as somebody who is pretty underrepresented, and especially since the gender gap in computing is so wide compared to other fields. But I feel like once I was able to get over my fear, especially through women's rights affinity groups and minority affinity groups, I was able to realize that it's just so important to pursue your passion, that you shouldn't really be stuck doing something that you're not interested in just for the sake of wanting to quote unquote fit in. Yeah, there aren't a lot of women in computer science, but you can start that change of creating opportunities for more minorities to feel safe and heard in computer science. So I would say to my younger self, continue to follow your interests, continue to follow your dreams, especially in AI. You think it won't be big 2 years from now, but I promise it will be. So follow your passions and just make sure to be true to yourself no matter what.
Meher?
I'm totally going to back up Grace on that one. I think growing up in India and just being, I don't think I had access to great mentors who, I guess, looked like me or had similar experiences to me. And I think growing up, I was really interested in math, and I think that's what really got me into CS. but I was like, I don't know, maybe this is not the space for me. Even when I went to high school, even though it was slightly less, I still noticed this huge gap in and disparity in the men and women in the CS and advanced math classes that I was taking. And I guess kind of just going off of what Grace said, totally. I think if I would just encourage my younger self to keep pushing and keep pursuing her passion and not be discouraged, because she never knows it, and maybe she could be the change that is needed, because maybe there is someone out there who is by some, in even the smallest capacity, inspired through Steam Bloom or by me or my co-founder or the other incredible women who helped me start this organization, and can be like, yeah, I want to be like that. And also, just kind of a totally side note, or not completely, but my dad always grew up telling us to live a life that focuses on serving others. And I think that's something also that I would remind myself even now, because I think that's how we can, by uplifting others, I think we can notice so many stronger things about ourselves.
You all, so wise, so wise. Danielle?
Yeah, I love this question so much because when I was younger, I thought I was incapable of being in STEM. Like, I had always heard like girls are not meant to be in STEM, even from my own dad. He still to this day thinks that, by the way. And it was so discouraging. I had invented my first robot and it had been an entire year after where I was like, oh, I'm not going to be in STEM. I am not cut out for that, you know? And I wish I could tell my younger self that, like, you can do it, you know, like it doesn't matter what people are saying to you in that regard. Like, you can do what you want to do. And I think that advice that I generally give my students, and I wish I could also give my younger self, is that you may not necessarily be accepted in like predominantly white spaces or institutions. And it is not a reflection on your intelligence or your ability in not fitting in those spaces. Like for me, like just walking into a room, I'm like, wow, like I'm culturally coming from such a different standpoint of these people. I had such a different upbringing as these people. Like I'm like, oh, I really don't feel like I fit in. And as I share my perspectives and other people share theirs, I'm like, wow, it feels so weird, you know, like we're looking at this from totally different lenses. And I think that's why it's so important to have a support system from the background that you come from, and to have people who will hype you up as you go through challenges within STEM. For me, the biggest supporters that I have are all Native women, not only women in my own family, but awesome women all over, especially like the United States area, who are just killing it in their own regard and who just like send me cat memes all the time and lots of inspo, especially on Instagram and stuff like that. That is so encouraging when it feels so isolating to exist just in the realm of STEM, and like, oh my gosh, people don't get it, the feeling you have, like everyone has that. So find other people who also experience that as well. One other thing that I grew up hearing is something called the 7 generations like teaching. Basically, it's that everything we do is to benefit 7 generations in the future. So that means make good decisions, help the people around us, make sure that we're creating a world that not only want for ourselves, but we want for our future ancestors. But we have to do that with something in mind. We have to do that with knowledge to 7 generations past, to how our ancestors did things, to how they led their own life, right? There's a lot of wisdom in that, in listening to our elders, to our community members, to listening to even our parents, our grandparents, right? There's beauty in that. And so it's about having wisdom in the choices that we're making as we continue to do things for the future. And I think as we work it within technology, these are things we need to keep in mind. We need to not completely be, forward facing, right? We need to think about the past too and what that means in relation to us now. And so those are all things that I wish I could tell young me. Like, you know, it's kind of hard because I'm like, there's so many tears, you know, like, oh my gosh, I don't fit in. Oh my goodness, I'm being bullied in STEM. Like, this is horrible. Like, oh my gosh, I wish I could just tell myself, chill out. It'll be all right. find your support system. And for me, the biggest thing is it's okay to quit or leave something if you have the ability to, if it is not a safe space for you. If that is, it's not always doable or achievable, whether it be a job, whether it be school, right? But if you have the ability to, it is okay to take a step back. It is okay to say, I can't do that. Always focus on your mental health and your well-being above all else, after survival, of course. But yeah, I just wanted to share those things. Thank you so much for having me in my language. That's Miigwech. Miigwech, thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Maya, I don't know how you'll follow that, but
I don't think there's anything more to say. All I can say is that I just love hearing these experiences, and thinking back 30 some plus years from when I was in high school, like if I had heard of the experiences that you all have, like it's just wonderful to hear about all the amazing work that you're all doing.
thank you all for joining us. It was a delightful conversation, even through my internet hiccups. Vanessa, we'll turn it back over to you. Thank you all and for joining.
Thank you, Dr. Joseph, and thank you, CS Hero panelists. Let's give them a big shout out and a big thank you. And you can see that a lot of people are interested in visiting your site, visiting a variety of different resources, and we love hearing about your stories. I also posted in the chat additional resources for CSEdWeek from our partners. And again, remember that on our CSTA website, we have all of our CS Heroes. And so you only got to meet 4, but we want you to meet all of our 17 incredible heroes. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, and good night. Happy CSEdWeek 2023.
Take care, everyone. Happy CSEdWeek.
Happy CSEdWeek.